morning, later after her meeting.
Okay. All right then. As I usually do before we start our meetings, if you have a cell phone, please either silence it or turn it off. I will call the regular meeting of the City Commission of Oregon City to order for Wednesday, June 20th, 2018. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Ide? Here. Commissioner O'Donnell?
Attending remotely.
And Commissioner Mengelberg will arrive after she's done at a prior meeting, and Mayor Holliday.
Here. Please stand and join me in the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so to get started, we have ceremonies and proclamations, and I normally don't read proclamations, but this one is especially near and dear to my heart. So I will, without further ado, whereas the Boy Scouts of America has been at the forefront of instilling timeless values in youth since its founding in 1910, and whereas the Boy Scouts of America is committed to helping millions of youth thrive by providing support, friendship, and guidance necessary to live a happy and rewarding life, and whereas one of the major objectives in the Scouting program is to develop responsible citizenship, character development, and self-reliance through participation in a wide range of activities, and whereas Boy Scout Troop 220, located here in Oregon City, is recognized as the oldest Boy Scouts of America troop in the Cascade Pacific Council, and whereas Boy Scout Troop 220 is celebrating its 100 consecutive years as a continually chartered Boy Scout troop, and now, therefore, I, Dan Holliday, Mayor of Oregon City, here do proclaim June 23rd, 2018 as Boy Scouts of America Troop 220 Day, and express the appreciation of our citizens to the Cascade Pacific Council, the Boy Scouts of America Troop 220, for their interest in and dedication to America's youth, and encourage Oregon City citizens to celebrate this milestone anniversary with Troop 220 at their open house, held at the VFW Post 1324, 104 Tumwater Drive, Oregon City, Oregon, on Saturday, June 23rd, 2018, from 12 p.m. to 6 p.m. In witness whereof I appear to set my hand this 20th day of June, 2018. I want to give just a little bit of information about these guys, and before I start that, I know that my Scoutmaster, I'm a former member of Troop 220, and my Scoutmaster was an Oregon City police officer, Larry Long. So the troop has a long and varied history in our community. So Boy Scouts of America 220 of Oregon City, Oregon turns 100. The oldest BSA troop in the Cascade Pacific Council is celebrating 100 consecutive years as a continually chartered Boy Scout troop. Originally chartered by the First Presbyterian Church in June of 1918, Oregon City's Troop 220 has successfully been serving the community and creating strong future leaders throughout their organized BSA program for 100 years. Now chartered by VFW Post 1324 of Oregon City, the troop has 20 active scouts and has had scores of scouts earn the Eagle rank over its century of service, with more achieving this prestigious honor every year. The troop participates in many regular outdoor activities and assists with numerous community service projects throughout the calendar year. Activities such as leading the community Easter egg hunt at a local city park, setting out flags for Memorial Day festivities at Mountain View Cemetery, school grounds cleanups, flag ceremonies for local organizations, and flag retirement ceremonies with its VFW charter partner, to name a few. To celebrate this milestone activity, Troop 220 is holding an open house of grand proportions on Saturday. Open house is at where I said before, and many BSA community leaders will be in attendance and congratulate the troop on their accomplishment. And I will be in attendance along with some other folks that I know. So congratulations to Troop 220. Do we have any citizen comment?
Yes.
Okay, we'll just start out with Mr. Gifford and Mr. Mitchell.
Oh, jeez. Here we go.
The Bobbsey twins.
We didn't work on our acting.
Right, yeah, I know.
Color coordinated
This ought to be good.
Mr. Mayor, City Commissioners, my name is William Gifford. I live in Oregon City. I just wanted to point out to our listening public that tonight, before this meeting at the work session, there was a presentation by ODOT. I'd encourage them to take a look at that. And to make a mention that this coming Tuesday, the Oregon City Business Alliance is hosting ODOT to give a presentation on the solutions that they are working with regarding the unfunded mandate by the legislature to reduce congestion on I-5 and I-205.
Meaning tolls. Say it.
You all right?
The euphemism of congestion pricing or value pricing is another term for tolling. It's how that could work or how it couldn't work is something that should be a lively discussion and a good lunch. That's 11:30 Tuesday at the Abernathy Center. And I think today is the last day to get reservations. So if you would go to www.ocbusinessalliance.com. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mitchell?
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. For the record, my name is Mike Mitchell. I'm an Oregon City resident. I want to start by saying that I am a member of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, but I want to make it clear that I'm speaking tonight for myself because PRAC has not discussed this, although I think I would have pretty much unanimous agreement from PRAC on what I want to talk to you about. I was pleased to see on your consent agenda tonight the settlement agreement for the tree cutting lawsuits in Waterboard Park. And what I would like to request is that those monies be reserved for park enhancement use and they be set aside until such time as PRAC and a greater public process can provide you with some suggested park enhancements that could be done with those funds. We all know that Waterboard Park has been in the news over a couple of incidents lately and not the kind of things that we'd hope for. There's been some division, some hard feelings, some lawsuits, but I think we have a chance here to grab a small victory and come back together, work together in a public process, and come up with enhancements that we can do in our park system with those funds, either our park system in general or perhaps even Waterboard Park in particular. So I'm just asking for myself tonight. As I said, I think PRAC would agree, but speaking just for myself, asking that you set those funds aside, that they only be used for parks enhancement, and that PRAC and a greater public process have a chance to weigh in on how those funds could be used.
I think we could probably do that minus the attorney's costs that we've had involved in the lawsuit, because I don't.
I think that makes that net of the attorney. I mean, the attorney fees shouldn't end up being a burden somewhere else, but net of attorney's fees,
Okay.
yes. All right, thank you.
We already spent the rest of it on bicycles, so, you know.
On bicycles,
Yeah.
okay.
Oh, for the police department?
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
You're gonna toll those bicycles.
The toll booth. We got one toll booth.
All right,
Thank you.
enough. Dorothy Dalsrud.
Hello, my name is Dorothy Dalzer, commonly known as Dee Dee. Live at 415 Dewey Street, Oregon City, Oregon. And I specifically came down because the release of settlement agreement resolved in Oregon City for the lawsuit of Waterboard Park. That is a very strong feeling that I've had. And even before I became active in Oregon City, I'm with the Natural Resources Committee. Again, I'm not here speaking in regards to natural resources, and also involved in our parks. This incident caused me to become more active in our parks and vocal. I'm hoping that this money, as you're considering, its divisions, would stay directly in our parks. Again, I want to say Waterboard Park especially, because it was so devastatedly clear cut. You know, if you had that in any other example of the park, there would be less than half the trees in Rivercrest. So we all know how much the devastation was. I think we could put elevated sidewalks in there. We could continue cleaning up the ivy. There's many organizations that are already working on that. So I'm encouraging that those finances, those monies that have been given to the settlement in the city would stay right here in our parks, with emphasis on Waterboard Park, because there is really a really cool plan over the next 5 years that maybe we can even bring its 20-year plan into fruition sooner. Thank you.
Well,
Thank you.
we really appreciate your efforts there, pulling all the ivy down there too.
Hey, we
I
can
think
move a
the whole,
Volkswagen of ivy out
Parks-
like
Well,
that.
that Parks and Recs Foundation been doing all that, so, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, is that it?
Yes.
Okay, so we will move on to public hearings. PC 18-083, first reading of ordinance number 18-1007, approving annexation and rezoning of approximately 92 acres in Park Place, files AN 17-004 and ZC 17-005. Ms. Turway.
Thank you very much. Assistant City Attorney Carrie Richter will provide legal disclosures, followed by a staff presentation from Pete Walter, planner at the city.
Thank you. A public hearing on a land use matter is scheduled for tonight. A staff report has been prepared and made available to the public 7 days before tonight's hearing. The staff report identifies the approval criteria that apply to the proposal. Staff has analyzed the criteria along with written comments and input received through the public notification process. The quasi-judicial hearing procedure that the commission will follow is set out in state law and in the Oregon City Municipal Code. The hearing procedure steps are shown on the chart, and those are the steps we're going to follow tonight. The Planning Commission has recommended approval of this annexation and zone change applications, and the matter is now before the City Commission for final consideration. And the City Commission's review is on the record. So argument is allowed, but the argument that is presented must be limited to the evidence that was presented before the Planning Commission. Evidence are facts, and it is limited to the issues that were raised before the Planning Commission. So anybody can testify, but their testimony must be limited to facts that are in the record and must be limited to the issues that were raised before the Planning Commission. Anyone who wishes to speak on this matter should fill out a speaker's card and give it to the city recorder. Speakers will proceed in the order in which their card is received. For the public record, please begin all testimony stating your name and whether you reside or have business within the city. Argument should be directed toward the applicable approval criteria. A person may submit any written material while the public record is open, so long as it does not contain new evidence, and so long as it is limited to the issues that were raised before the Planning Commission. Any written materials mailed to the city staff during the time period in which the record is open will be placed in the record, subject to those limitations that I previously stated. Written material submitted during the public hearing must be presented to the city staff in order to become part of the hearing. If the City Commission makes a decision with which you disagree, any issue that you may wish to appeal must have been raised for the Commission's consideration. Without raising the issue on the record with sufficient specificity and accompanied by statements or evidence that the city and all parties can respond, the issue will not be judged appealable at the State Land Use Board of Appeals. In addition, Oregon Revised Statute 197796 requires us to announce the following. The failure of an applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with sufficient specificity to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court. Before we move into the staff report, does any commissioner have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest, bias, or any other statement to declare? And has any commissioner visited the site?
Visited the site.
I have visited the site.
I visited the site, and I'm also a resident of the Park Place neighborhood.
Commissioner O'Donnell has no ex parte contacts.
Any ex parte contacts?
No.
On your dais, I believe that you all got an email from Mr. Tom Guile. And I don't know if any of you read it. It in summary, indicates that some tree cutting has occurred on the property since the Planning Commission made its decision, and asks that the city not take any action and declare a moratorium as a result of this tree cutting activity. Ordinarily, when ex parte contacts come into the hands of the commissioners outside the public hearing, we put them in the record, right? And then folks have an opportunity to comment about them. In this case, the facts that are contained in this email are facts that occurred after the Planning Commission closed the public record. So they are new facts that the City Commission cannot consider. Rather than go through the process of striking things or instructing you about not considering things as we go along, I'm gonna keep a list and we're gonna deal with it at the end. But I wanna, while we're talking about ex parte contacts, I wanna bring this up, that this email was received to the City Commission. We have copies, we can make them available, but they do contain new evidence. Mr. Guile will have an opportunity to testify, but the testimony needs to be limited to facts that were presented before the Planning Commission and limited to issues that were raised before the Planning Commission. So does anyone in the audience wish to question the commissioners regarding their representations about site visits and about this email, that it occurred or whether they read it?
Thank you, Mayor Holliday. Thank you, Mayor Holliday.
Hold on, Frank, what do you need?
Ms. Richter, I have a question as to your interpretation. The question of tree cutting was brought up during the Planning Commission. Is this information not simply a continuation of that discussion, and as such, not new evidence?
My understanding is that Chair McGriff, during the Planning Commission proceeding, did raise concerns about tree cutting that could occur on the site. That issue has been raised, but the content of the email is that tree cutting activity has occurred since the Planning Commission met. And that is a fact that is not included in the record before the Planning Commission, and that is what you cannot consider.
Understood.
Go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Mayor Holliday, members of the commission. My name is Mike Robinson. My business address is 1211 Southwest 5th Avenue, Suite 1900, Portland, Oregon, 97204. I'm here today on behalf of the applicant. I asked the City Commission at the conclusion of this hearing to strike in its entirety the June 20th email from Mr. Guile. It not only contains facts not in evidence before the Planning Commission, which is prohibited by OCMC 1750-030 sub D.
Hold on a second, Mr. Robinson. So this period of time is to ask us questions.
I'm responding. Let me ask you this question then.
Okay.
Do you have an email from Mr. Guile dated June 20th,
Yes, sir.
2018? Does it refer to tree cutting, as in Mr. Gile's words, quote, trees have already been cut this week, end quote?
Yes.
Then we would ask you to strike that.
Okay.
At the conclusion of tonight's hearing. May I also ask the commission one other question?
Sure.
Does it also raise an issue regarding a request for a moratorium?
Yes.
Then we would ask the commission to strike that issue as it was not raised before the Planning Commission either. Thank you.
Sir.
So anyone else wish to question the commissioners?
Questioning the attorney.
Seeing none, we will move on to the staff report.
Okay, so before we get to the staff report, I'm going to reemphasize what Ms. Richter said. That is, the testimony that we give that is going to be given tonight must follow those rules. And Ms. Richter, I'm going to let you play referee on that, because while in general familiarity about what has transpired so far, I have not been in those meetings. So you're a much better arbiter than I to determine what is and is not new evidence. Mm-hmm. So with that.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. File number AN 170004 and ZC 170005. This is a type 4 annexation with zone change in the Park Place area.
Just to be clear for the folks that are on TV, your name is?
Oh, sorry, Pete Walter, planner.
Thank you.
This is an annexation of approximately 92 acres within the urban growth boundary. It is an area that has comprehensive plan designations. The zone change request is to change it from county, future urban, and rural farm and forest to Oregon City zoning R10, R5, and neighborhood commercial. These zoning designations would implement the Park Place concept plan, North Village. which was adopted in 2008. Consists of 15 tax lots located north of Livesey Road and south of Holcomb Boulevard. These are the comprehensive plan designations. Medium density residential comprises the majority of that area, but there's also a section of mixed use corridor along Livesey Road and one parcel that would be low density residential. This is a site topography, with the exception of the northwestern portion of the site where there is a creek that flows and a ravine. It is largely gently sloped. There was testimony about this, and portions of the site would fall within the city's geologic hazard overlay district, as well as our natural resources overlay district. Sorry. This is an aerial photograph indicating the current layout of the site and vegetation that's there. You can see Holcomb Boulevard to the northeast, and the parcel that abuts Holcomb Boulevard. You can also see here that, I think the next slide shows it better, but I'll get to that. This is the concept plan diagram that was adopted and implemented through our comprehensive plan. What is envisioned here is a walkable neighborhood with a community center anchored by parks and green spaces at the eastern end of Livesey Road, surrounded by medium density residential housing. The area is served by a collector level road that connects Livesey Road to Holcomb Boulevard, and that is known as the North Holly Lane Extension. The North Holly Lane Extension eventually would extend from Livesey Road south down to Redland Road and create an intersection with the current end of Holcomb Boulevard. We'll talk more about that. There's a significant portion of the Park Place concept plan which is bisected by steep slopes and ravines, and the areas that are designated for residential development here have been considered already as developable based on the analysis that we did when we adopted the Park Place concept plan. There would be further analysis as we go forward with the planning for this area. The annexation area is outlined in magenta here. Part of this annexation would create an island of 3 tax lots abutting Holcomb Boulevard. Our comprehensive plan has a policy that the city evaluate and avoid creating unincorporated islands within the city. It provides that in some instances, the city may require that parcels adjacent to the annexation be included with the annexation request, but it also allows the commission to create islands if they find that public facilities could still be provided and it would not interfere with the implementation of our plan. If the city were to require the annexation of those 3 lots, that island, then this application, subject to Senate Bill 1573, would have to send the approved annexation to the voters for ratification, since there would no longer be 100% owner consent for the annexation. And I'll talk about the criteria there shortly. In order to qualify for an annexation, there are a set of criteria that have to be met. These include the metro boundary change criteria in the Metro Urban Growth Plan. That's chapter 3.09, and they're listed here. They include requirements that you comply with certain revised statutes, that you acknowledge any urban planning agreements between us and the county and any service districts, that you have directly applicable public facilities plans, and that your comprehensive plan and codes are consistent with Metro Code. It also talks importantly about the timely, orderly, and economic provision of public facilities, and this is a criterion that runs not just through Metro Code, but through the city's codes and through state land use code. Oh, whoa, sorry about that. Let's see. Yeah, let's get back to that. So with respect to Senate Bill 1573, this was adopted in 2016 by the Senate. It requires annexation of territory without a vote of the people if the city finds that that territory is included within an urban growth boundary, that it will be subject to an acknowledged comprehensive plan, that it has at least one parcel contiguous to the city limit, and in this case that is met, and that it complies with all other requirements of our city ordinances. And this annexation qualifies under all four of these criteria. So just wanted to go back to the island annexation. One of those criteria also talks about owner consent. And if you don't have 100% owner consent, then you can't annex without getting a voter approval.
Let me interrupt
do you
Pete
wanna
and
talk about
let the
that?
record reflect that Commissioner
Mengelberg.
I was gonna say Mandela. Mengelberg has arrived. So,
Promotion.
welcome.
Okay,
Okay. The principal.
Sorry, Pete.
Sorry.
you gotta do all the legal stuff.
I gotta do the, so we are in the midst of the Park Place annexation public hearing. And, I need to ask you if you have any ex parte contacts, conflicts of interest.
I do not.
To discuss,
Have you
to
visited the
disclose.
site?
Visited the site. You received an email from Mr. Guile, and we've talked a little bit about how it contains new evidence. This hearing is limited to the facts that were presented before the Planning Commission and the issues that were raised before the Planning Commission. And so the content of that email is beyond the scope of this hearing. So we'll go through all that again at the end. I just want to give you a little preface. Sorry,
Okay.
Pete, and sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So as far as the Planning Commission's recommendation based on city code, these 7 factors are found to be applicable, and there's a positive balance of these factors made by the Planning Commission when they forward you a recommendation for approval. These include having adequacy of access, conformity with the city's comprehensive plan, adequacy of public facilities and services, compliance with state statutes on annexation and Metro Code. Do we have ordinances in place that protect development on steep slopes and natural resources and cultural resources? And do we have the right regulatory tools to assure that there would be a lack of significant adverse impacts on the economic, social, and physical environment of the community? And the findings indicate that these factors have been met on balance. With the zone change criteria, the proposal must be consistent with our comprehensive plan, i.e. the Park Place concept plan and those designations. I do not do that. So.
Maybe a little remedial training on.
Public facilities, including all the pipes, storm drains, schools, police and fire protection, must be capable of supporting the uses allowed by the zoning, or those must be made available prior to issuing a certificate of occupancy. The land uses must be consistent with our transportation system, and that means our transportation system plan, and that we address statewide planning goals if the comprehensive plan doesn't contain specific policies or provisions. In the vast majority of cases, our own comprehensive plan complies with statewide planning goals, but we also make findings of consistency with statewide planning goals, including the transportation planning rule. And our transportation consultant, John Replinger, is here tonight if you have questions about more details on transportation impacts and compliance. I'm summarizing what the Planning Commission sent forward as far as conditions of approval for this annexation, because we have a set of conditions which addresses a variety of public improvements, and there's a significant amount of additional planning that needs to be done for this area before development can occur. So first condition is that this final zoning that is proposed would not be effective until alternative mobility targets are adopted and amendments have been made to our transportation code, which is chapter 12.04.
Hang on, Pete. So one question. So I know we've been looking at alternative mobility targets for 213 and Beaver Road, but I think the Redland Road area was not in that study at this point in time. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So we would still have to go through that process?
No, we've got in our TSP projects identified to improve those intersections, and there's conditions of approval specific to those intersections that are attached to this annexation. So, and we have financial figures that we can base on, which be refined with a master plan. I'm going to talk about the master plan next and what that means. So if they're annexed, there would be no development beyond that permitted under the current county zoning until a type 3 master plan for the entire 91, I should say 92 acre property addresses this. That would implement the park, sorry.
And what is allowed under county FE10?
It's a 10 acre minimum, and it allows, you know, housing as long as you have 10 acres. So basically what this says is very little can occur under the county zoning until city zone applies to the property.
Okay.
Maintenance of buildings and that are, you know, without expansions and that sort of thing.
Okay.
So what we're envisioning with the condition for the master plan is that the Planning Commission, it comes back to the Planning Commission, and we will look at the phasing of public facilities, parks and trails, and the timing of parkland acquisitions and development, any dedication of land for parks and that sort of thing. We want to see some utility phasing so that you can foster redevelopment of not just the annexation area, but the areas adjacent to it for the entire concept plan area. And also, we want to tighten up the phasing so that we know when the connection will be made from Livesey Road down to Redland Road and from Livesey Road up to Holcomb Boulevard. So until we have a more detailed transportation impact analysis, which indicates, you know, the first phases of development for this 92 acres, that's what the master plan will tell us. Furthermore, the applicant will mitigate for development impacts by participating in proportional funding for transportation impact projects related to the development. And in the findings and conditions of approval, those are listed in detail, each of those intersections. And the specific costs of those is called out in the conditions of approval, but they would be updated with the approval of a future general development plan or master plan. We use this slide to indicate the process in general. It's just instructive as to how long it has taken to get to this point. The urban growth boundary was expanded in 2002. We adopted the Park Place concept plan in 2008. There have been various attempts to annex land in this area over time, and that's where we're at now, annexation and zoning. Following this, we will have a master plan process, which is a type 3 land use review. And either concurrently with that master plan or following it, the applicant can apply for land division or site plan and design review. And then finally, they can, once that is done, then you have your land use process approvals out of the way, then you can apply for building permits. And this does take time. It is entirely dependent on the market and owners and owner desires.
So if you had to take a guess in the best case scenario with nobody appealing or anything like that, what is the time frame from, you just moved my thing.
Oh, sorry.
What is the time frame from 4 to 7?
From 4 to 7, we don't know at this point. But normally, master plan is subject to a 120-day decision-making process, just like any other land use approval. So once it's deemed complete, we will process that and render a decision within that time. And then there's construction plan review through Public Works.
How long is the zoning gonna take?
Well, this is the zoning, so once that's effective.
Well, there's an excuse me, Pete, there's an added step in here, which is the zoning's not gonna be effective until the alternative transportation plan.
Mobility targets, right.
Mobility targets
Right.
are in place. And those aren't gonna be in place until the highway plan is amended to include them.
Okay.
So I don't know what Laura's estimated time for that is, but that is gonna be on top of, I mean, the time, the sort of timeline for the development approvals.
I mean, I guess, and I know you all want to hedge your bets, okay? But in a general term, are we talking a year? Are we talking 3 years? Are we talking 5 years?
4 to 5, if I were to do a wild
Okay,
guess.
thank you.
Unknown, it
That's,
could be a
that's
very
all,
long
that's all I
time.
wanted to know.
Okay. So our recommendation as staff is approving the first reading of the ordinance, but I wanted to give you some background on the Planning Commission's decision. They voted 5-1-0 to recommend approval of the files with the amended conditions. Attached to the ordinance are the final findings of fact and conclusions of law. And those findings incorporate the staff reports and all of the exhibits for the February 12th, April 9th, and May 14th Planning Commission public hearings. So those are included by reference with the ordinance as well as the map and legal description. So Planning Commission and staff is recommending approval of this application and zoning. That was a very high-level review of the details that we've been through with the Planning Commission. So if you have more detailed questions, I'd be happy to answer them based on what is in the record.
Okay. Any questions now? Okay, then I'm gonna open the public hearing. And Mr. Robinson, you got 15 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Holliday, members of the City Commission. My name is Mike Robinson. I'm here on behalf of the applicant. My mailing address is 1211 Southwest 5th Avenue, Suite 1900, Portland, Oregon 97204. We appreciate the staff recommendation for approval, and we appreciate the Planning Commission's recommendation to this body that you approve this application. By the way, the only evidence in my testimony tonight is that evidence that was in the Planning Commission record. So I think Pete's oral staff report and slides did a very nice job of presenting the issues to you, and because of that, I'll try and make my presentation a bit shorter than it was at the Planning Commission. So I think that the slide that Pete had up a moment ago is helpful not only to this commission, but to the public. The area that's being proposed for annexation is an area that the city has analyzed and looked at a number of times in the past. It came into the boundary, Metro looked at it at that point, the city looked at it at that point. You took the time and expense to provide a concept plan, the Park Place concept plan. That required an extra level of analysis. So one of the issues we heard at the Planning Commission, that was whether this area was proper for development, and the answer clearly is yes. It wouldn't have come into the boundary if it weren't, and it wouldn't have been approved with a concept plan as it's been done if it weren't. So I think the slide that was up a moment ago showing you where we are in the development process is quite accurate, and it makes a lot of sense. You've done a lot to move this property from outside the UGB into the UGB. Now it's coming into the city. But what's before you tonight doesn't allow any development at all. And as Pete told you, we have two important milestones that have to occur before any development can happen on the property. The first is the alternative mobility standards have to be adopted so the zoning becomes effective. And the second is we have to bring a master plan back in a type 3 process to the Planning Commission. So there's a public process for both of those elements. Even after that, we have, as part of the master plan, we'll go through a subdivision. And then we finally, at the very end, and I don't know whether 4 or 5 years is accurate, it could be more, it could be less, but it's not going to be tomorrow. You'll finally get to development of the roads, the parks, the infrastructure, and then the homes that families will live in. So we're well into the planning process, but we're a long way from the development process. And I wanted, Again, to be clear, this application doesn't allow development. It simply brings the property into the city and zones it consistent with the comprehensive plan. So you have a couple of set of criteria you have to find are satisfied by substantial evidence. One is the annexation factors in Oregon City Municipal Code 1404060. There are 6 of those. Pete Slide did a nice job of explaining those. The Planning Commission found that each of those factors was supported by substantial evidence and concluded that the applicant met the approval criteria. The other set of standards are those found in Oregon City Municipal Code 1768020 for zoning map amendments. This one is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The public facilities and services will be available with development, and the planned land uses are consistent with the transportation system. The big issue, and not to minimize any issue raised at the Planning Commission, they're all important, but the biggest issue was transportation. That's why the Planning Commission recommendation to you includes several factors that ultimately require the applicant to spend a significant amount of money in cooperation with others to bring the roads up to an acceptable public standard. As part of that analysis, the Planning Commission looked at evidence from the Oregon Department of Transportation, Clackamas County, your transportation engineer, and the applicant's transportation engineer. We started out with a lot of issues. We eventually worked down to a single Clackamas County issue, which they ultimately found was satisfied by the applicant's evidence. And the Planning Commission found that we satisfied the transportation planning rule and your transportation system plan, and consequently found that all of the zoning map criteria were satisfied. There were several issues raised, and the Planning Commission decision addresses those, but let me just touch on them briefly if I can. One that's important to the public is the capacity of schools. The Oregon City School District number 62 submitted a letter dated February 12, 2018 that found that facilities for this area will be adequate by the time it develops. And I would also note that ORS 195110 sub 13 doesn't allow a local government to deny a residential application unless the school district says facilities are inadequate. Here, because the school district has found just the opposite, it's appropriate to not base a decision on inadequacy of school facilities. Transportation, I've already touched on that. A lot of discussion about that and a lot of evidence and analysis by four transportation engineers, all concluding that the relevant standards were satisfied. We're comfortable with the master plan process. That needs to come back with appropriate phasing and description of how the public facilities are going to be provided. There was a lot of discussion about the steep slopes in the area and about geologic hazards. With respect to steep slopes, the testimony from the applicant was these slopes really aren't much steeper than other areas that have been developed, and it's quite common to develop these slopes. With respect to geologic hazards, this is subject to the Geologic Hazard Overlay Zone in Oregon City Municipal Code, Chapter 1749, which provides a process for assuring adequate construction. Island annexation. Oregon City Comprehensive Plan Policy 14.4.3 was identified by Pete as a relevant approval standard. It provides, quote, evaluate and in some instances require that parcels adjacent to proposed annexations be included to avoid creating unincorporated islands within the city. Well, this is not a mandatory policy. It's effectively a guideline because it does not use the word shall, and what it requires is a discretionary decision-making body such as you to look at this and say, well, there's a reason we shouldn't do this. The principal reason that was discussed at the Planning Commission, and we agree with the staff analysis, was it doesn't impede those 3 lots that constitute the island from being served. They still have utilities, still are able to be developed. There's not a problem with making the island, and because of that, the Planning Commission found that this comprehensive plan policy was satisfied. In other words, it wasn't a mandatory policy that prevented the annexation, and we agree with that conclusion. Mayor, there are probably other things we could talk about, and if you have questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But we think the Planning Commission did a good job of analyzing the application, looking at the substantial evidence, and then concluding that we met the applicable approval criteria. So for those reasons, we'd ask the City Commission to follow the Planning Commission's recommendation and approve this application with the recommended conditions of approval. I do have one request of the City Commission. Should you choose to tentatively approve the application tonight, because I suspect we're going to have some additional testimony tonight, we, the applicant at least, would prefer that you not adopt the findings that are in the packet tonight, but rather instruct the prevailing party, if it's the applicant, to modify those findings to reflect testimony tonight, give them to the city attorney for the city attorney's office final review, and then bring them back to adoption at second reading on July 5th.
Anybody have questions for Mr. Robinson? No. Okay, I have one. So the 3 lots that we're talking about up there on Holcomb today, they're currently being served by Clackamas River Water,
I don't know the answer to that.
but they have water service from somebody.
My understanding, and if I'm wrong, I'd ask staff to correct me, is all three are developed and all three have water service.
So Pete?
Currently, we have an agreement. No, we have an agreement with Clackamas River Waters, serve areas that are below a certain elevation. And I believe those areas are currently served by Clackamas River Water.
And are those on septic or are they on?
That I don't know what kind of sewage system they have. I would assume it's septic. But,
Okay. That's all I have.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, sir. Okay, so next we have testimony from representatives of a recognized neighborhood association, government body, or other incorporated public interest organization. Do we have anybody like that? Katie? Then we'll move on to individual testimony, 3 minutes, with, again, the proviso that Ms. Richter will be refereeing this testimony.
I'm up for the task.
I have, I only have one on the list so far, Mr. Guile.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Tom Guile. I live in Oregon City. I don't have any highly paid attorney to quote codes, so I'm going to represent myself. I don't have anybody convince you that I have valid arguments. The reason I sent an email today to everybody was the fact that our Planning Commission did discuss these issues. It was brought up about trees, and I was shocked this week to see that it was started already. Mr. Robinson just said to you that it won't be to tomorrow. It could be years down the road, yet it's already started now for those of us who live up there. And that's why I sent the letter to everybody. I wanted to read this letter into the record tonight for all those on air, but I have a feeling it would be stopped by that, and I don't think it's actually fair. I feel I'm almost insulted that I, as a citizen and as somebody who sits occasionally in chairs, that I am not allowed to tell you tell the public what I said. So that gives me the only recourse is to go to the media and to Facebook, to everything I can, to tell them that I came before you. I sent you a letter in good faith that when we asked about the trees during the Planning Commission, that they said nothing would happen, and then all of a sudden they were doing that. And speaking to some of you this week, I heard about excavators coming in. The Planning Commission approved this as it was sitting, and now it's being changed. That's not new evidence. That's being changed, the goalpost of what the Planning Commission said, yes, we approve it 5-1. And now it's being changed. And to me, that's not fair to all of you that while you're considering this, that it's going to be changed still. So can you say that that Mr. Smart Attorney cannot say against that this is what you're looking at and now it's going to be changed? Every day it could be changing. And that's not fair to you. It's not fair to the Planning Commission. So again, I'm not trying to threaten by saying the media, but I have no choice, and a lot of neighbors don't. They considered something. I obviously recused myself, but I was there for every meeting. I've been there for every meeting for 15 years. And now I'm seeing this happen so quick, even though Mr. Robinson is saying that it's not going to happen tomorrow. It's happening right now. That's not new evidence. That's just something taking place right now that changes what the Planning Commission said. We approve this as is. We hope you don't cut the trees. I know we don't have the authority. I know it's in the county. But this is somebody applying to the city, our city, to be annexed in. And to me, it seems that they should have to follow our rules. They're asking us to come into our city. So they should abide by the Planning Commission and by the City Commission on those issues. This is what we need to do. Don't change it. Don't put in roads yet because it hasn't gone through any review yet by the city. And that's all I've been asking through that email I sent to everybody this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
No. Tear it apart.
Do we have anybody else? Katie?
No.
Is there anybody else who wishes to speak on this matter? Okay, then I'm going to close the public hearing.
Rebuttal.
What?
Applicant rebuttal.
I was gonna let him do that afterward, but yeah, okay. Mr. Robbins, do you have anything to rebuttal?
Unfortunately.
And Mayor, what time can the commission ask a question on the process itself?
Sure, go ahead.
So I listened to Pete speak, and I use the term conditional approval. And I'm curious as to at what point does, and maybe this is a legal question, I heard Mr. Giles' testimony just now. He said about direction of the Planning Commission. At what point does direction of the Planning Commission or an understanding generated at the Planning Commission become a condition of approval? And so if they spoke about this matter, about trees, and I understand that any foliage, any trees, any bushes impact stormwater runoff and soil retention and stability. For the future, if this is unclear in this event, can the timing and the process for tree inventory and removal become a condition of approval? Because the position that's being represented now is it's an if-then proposition. And what I'm hearing is the Planning Commission said, if you do this, then they approved it. And it sounds like there's some misunderstanding. What do we have to do to firm that process up? Or can this whole thing about tree and foliage removal, can it be part of a conditional approval, or is it not a valid criteria?
So Frank, we're going to have a discussion about that coming up.
That would be good.
Because it's been raised, but we can't obviously do anything about it for this application because that would be changing the goalposts
Understood.
And adding new facts. So we are committed to having a discussion about that in the future.
Okay, understood. I just wanted to make sure we understood we were going to pursue it, and it sounds like we are, and I'm very satisfied by that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Robinson?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the City Commission. Mike Robinson here on behalf of the applicant. I didn't want to interrupt Mr. Giles' testimony, but I reserve the right to ask that the commission strike several things in his testimony. The fact of tree cutting, and I'll come back to the tree cutting issue in just a second, the allegation that, quote, excavators are coming, end quote. Neither of those were before the Planning Commission, and I recognize his passion on this issue, but fact is a fact, and we'd ask the City Commission to strike. I certainly agree we talked about the issue of tree cutting, but not the fact of tree cutting. And I appreciate that that may be a legal distinction, but that is in fact the distinction that's appropriate here. And with respect to the issue of tree cutting, for better or for worse, this property is in the county, it's FU10. One of the uses in that zone is, or two of the uses are farm and forest. So there's no county prohibition. This is not new evidence. This was evidence before the Planning Commission. There's no county prohibition on tree cutting while you're in the county. And there's no criterion that's applicable here governing tree cutting while you're in the county subject to annexation, which has not occurred yet. So I recognize that may not satisfy a number of folks, and I'm sorry about that, but we did discuss the issue, but we couldn't discuss the fact of tree cutting at the Planning Commission hearing. So there's no basis for acting on this application based on tree cutting, and the fact of tree cutting should be excluded. The only other thing I would say with respect to, well, I think I'll leave it at that. We appreciate the chance to make our presentation to the City Commission, and again, we ask that you follow your Planning Commission's recommendation. And thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Okay, so we've done the rebuttal, close the public hearing, and we will deliberate. Do you have anything else for us, Ms. Richter?
I would just like to ask that, assuming you are going to take action, that you include in your motion a statement that Mr. Giles' email will be struck because it contains new evidence and new issues and not be considered, as well as the comments about the activities that have happened on the property since the Planning Commission made a decision. Certainly the policy issue of tree cutting was raised, and that is germane for your discussion. But I think Mr. Robinson is right. There isn't anything in the code that allows us to regulate tree cutting until these lands are in the city. And could the city adopt some regulations as part of its annexation code that says that no activity can occur on a property while it's in the annexation review process? It could. But that would be a forward-looking legislative code amendment that would happen in the future. And it is certainly a concern that has been raised by the Planning Commission on multiple occasions.
In fact, hasn't the planning commission considered those rules at times in the past?
I believe that that is true.
Okay. So I have a question for you.
Sure.
In the record, there was a statement by Chair McGriff that no tree cutting should take place, or that something along those lines. Does the chair of the planning commission have any authority to enforce a statement like that?
No, no. But I think oftentimes you'll hear, I mean, in my experience with decision makers, they encourage action, right? They
Right.
point out, we're watching you and we would like you to save the trees. And they say that as sort of a, keep this in mind kind of thing. I mean, the
Right.
planning commission identified some other things too that they wanted to see and that are reflected in the findings in some regards. So it is not binding on the applicant, but it is a suggestion.
Okay. Questions? Debate? Who wants to go? Commissioner Shaw.
All right. So, we're always planning for growth. That's what we do. We do that with comprehensive plans. We do that with concept plans. And in this case here, we're doing it with a master plan also. And, and if we don't do that, and if we don't have the growth, people here, the only people that'll live here are people that can afford $500,000 houses. We don't do some annexations. So the applicant has met its legal burden of proof here. The bad news is this is a large annexation. We've got some traffic issues, we've got some safety issues, but the good news is this is a large annexation. And this allows for, a concept plan, but it requires the applicant to provide this master plan that's going to be, that's going to allow for more efficient infrastructure layout, which includes water, sewer, roads, parks, instead of doing it piecemeal at 10 or 20 acres at a time. I'd rather see us develop sites like this within our UGB rather than moving the UGB to accommodate our growth and destroying our countryside. So everyone is experiencing traffic. I think we all do in this room. I deal with it where I live. And with a large project like this, it allows us to predict its consequences. The city's transportation engineer found that the TPR, Transportation Planning Rule, was satisfied. ODOT is satisfied with the compliance with the TPR. I found 3 transportation entities that have found approval, but Mr. Robinson said there's 4. So lastly, I have an analogy on traffic, since I have to do it every day, and I've learned to accommodate that in my life here. So, but as an analogy, every couple of years, the self-serve gas folks kind of roll through town. And I have found that I'm willing to sacrifice a few moments of my life so that person pumping that gas has a job. And as far as the traffic, along with that, is that, I'm willing to sacrifice a few minutes of my life each day in traffic just so that somebody else has an opportunity to live here or work here in this city. So, there you go.
Thank you.
Okay.
Commissioner Mengelberg, you got anything?
I think the conditions of approval that the Planning Commission recommended are reasonable. They are forward-looking about addressing transportation challenges on Highway 213. And this area has been in the urban growth boundary for quite a while. It's been talked about for development a number of times. The Planning Commission has reviewed it over 3 meetings or more, and I respect their decision.
Commissioner Hyde?
Well, I am a little torn on this matter because I'm I've lived in Park Place for 12 years, and I've traveled back and forth on Holcomb Boulevard into town, heavy traffic, or at least the morning and the evening traffic times. I've listened to all of the testimony, both on the videos as well as read the comments that were submitted by citizens. I don't share the same feeling about how busy Holcomb Boulevard is right now, but I can anticipate that with more development that would happen. However, so I have to kind of look at it broadly. I know that the Planning Commission did all the hard work. The findings of facts that were submitted explain how the criteria has been met. And, you know, it's our job as a city commission. We took an oath saying that we would comply with the laws of the state and the city. And so, you know, the Senate bill that was passed had certain criteria of which have been met. And it just seems that we, you know, in my eyes, I personally don't have a choice in the matter at this point in time. I think that the pieces that are coming yet, which are livability, transportation issues, all those things, they're to come. And I, for one, am hoping that I will be on this commission still to be able to deal directly with those things that are important as far as the development of that community. I'm in a neighborhood that's one of the newer ones up there in Park Place, and, you know, it's a sense of place for me. I live there. I love my neighbors and my neighborhood, and just in that same way that I feel that way, I feel that it could very well be for a new neighborhood that's going to come in as well as those that live there now. It's a sense of place for you too. And I'm glad that the transportation plans have to be in place before the development commences. So they don't necessarily have to be all built out, but the plan has to be in place for those major intersections like at Holcomb and Abernethy, Redland, and up on 213. So that's comforting to a point. So like I said, I'm convinced. I did want to point out one person, one speaker, Lisa Novak. I think, let me double check. Novak. I appreciated her testimony a lot. She brought out the 2004 Holcomb Boulevard Enhancement Plan. And I believe that staff then made a condition of approval based on that to ensure that any future development would have those criteria as far as the PED and the bike paths. So that's where I'm at. I feel like I need to comply with the oath that I made to be a commissioner, to obey the laws of this city, and I support this annexation and the zoning.
Commissioner O'Donnell.
Well, first I want to tell everyone, my fellow commissioners and my citizens, that I'm sorry I can't be there tonight, but that's the nature of a volunteer commission, and obviously felt strong enough about this you call in. I'm going to state my position, and it'll be clear. Oftentimes, this commission does not quite know the will of the people of the community. In this case, they do. And 3 times in the past, the community has spoken, and they have defeated an annexation of this area. As Commissioner Ide said, we all took an oath of office, and I actually reviewed that oath, and among the things I've sworn to protect and defend is the city charter and my first commitment, regardless of those conflicting demands in that oath. My first commitment remains to the people of Oregon City. I know that considering annexation without development is a fool's errand, but we always do it. And I know annexation is the first step and is now often combined with zone changes, as this one was. You know, some of these things, I'll be honest, we know SDCs don't cover residential development, but specific to this, as one who's driven it, I'm concerned about the main roads to this area, that they don't lend themselves to modification to absorb the increased traffic. I think the topography of stuff would be incredibly challenging. And I feel that I think there's some work to be done. Obviously, our attorney made a distinction, as did Mr. Robinson, that when the Planning Commission speaks, there's a difference between encouragement of an action versus condition of approval, and I think we need to clarify that, and future action is a welcome process. I understand the state law and understand that this commission is bound by that, and perhaps, people looking for relief, that needs to happen at the state level, whether that be an initiative process or whatever it may be. And I studied that State Bill 1573, and that vote was 32 to 28. And I think what's profound to me, and why I'll take the position I do tonight, is we lost home rule, the ability to determine self-determination of our community, which has been a guiding principle of Oregon government for over 50 years. And I understand, and make no mistake, that I understand we've been told that we've done specific modifications to make this plan more acceptable. And I almost view that as, maybe it's like 50 shades of gray. Maybe they're made, but they're not that significant. And I know there's a feeling in the community that somebody's going to get screwed. So in the end, having all those things in my mind, and I choose to go with my city charter, and I'll be casting a no vote. I know it won't prevail, but perhaps it's just a statement. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Is there a motion?
I move PC 18-083, first reading of ordinance number 18-1007, approving an annexation and rezoning of approximately 92 acres in Park Place, and to strike Mr. Giles' email that he submitted today, and
not consider the facts related to events that happened after the Planning Commission. And subject to our coming back with revised findings for adoption during the second reading.
Yes, as she stated.
Everybody got that? Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? Call a roll. Oh, sorry, Ms. Richter.
Let me read this by title. Ordinance number 18-1007, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City approving an annexation and amending the official zoning map of Oregon City from County FU 10, Future Urban 10 acres, to R10, Single Family Dwelling District, R5 Dwelling District, and NC Neighborhood Commercial District for approximately 92 acres of property south of Holcomb Boulevard and north of South Livesey Road.
Commissioner Shaw?
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
Aye.
Commissioner Ide?
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
No?
Mayor Holliday?
So before I cast my vote, I have something to say, and that is that while all this has been going on in social media over the last few weeks, a lot of accusations have been made against myself and my fellow commissioners about, something being in the bag, or that we're corrupt, or that, we're somehow gaining some monetary benefit from the things that we do up here. I personally find all those comments offensive in the extreme. Every one of these people I know up here are honest, honorable people that do this job for free, that give up hours and hours of their time every month to serve this city. So this project has been more than 15 years in the making. It was around when I was on the city commission, my first term, more than 12 years ago. So it's been in process a long time. It's been talked about a long time. There have been numerous different meetings, whether it was through the concept plan and then through this planning commission plan and now at the city commission. So I'm just saying that we all work really hard to listen to everybody that has a voice, but at the end of the day, we are a country of laws. And I get nailed every once in a while because I say, even though I don't like something personally, I'm bound by the law, I'm bound by the code, I'm bound by state law, and even if there's something that we don't like, the only thing I can do is to go change that law. And so I'm gonna vote yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, moving on, we have nothing in general business. Anybody want to pull anything from consent agenda?
Nope.
So did we want to clarify, or has it been clarified in the media about the settlement?
There's been an article written about the settlement that we
The water park?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, so I guess we don't need to pull that then. So I would entertain a motion for the consent agenda.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Call a roll, please.
Commissioner Shaw,
Aye.
Commissioner Mengelberg,
Aye.
Commissioner Ide,
Aye.
Commissioner O'Donnell,
Aye.
Mayor Holliday.
Aye. Mr. Manager.
I don't have any updates for the commission tonight.
Okay, Commissioner Shaw.
Let's see, attended the Lotterat Park de-paving project with the mayor.
Hello, Jack, you've been in Canada?
Canadian. And Mr. Mitchell was there, and I'm trying to think of who else might have been there, but, and also the chamber this morning with the ribbon breaking of the Willamette Falls new building up at the hospital up there. And spent last week representing the Oregon City and the South Fork Water Board in Vegas. So
I feel bad for you.
wasn't bad. You know, we just as a point of curiosity, it's a convention about water, and we stayed at the Mandalay Bay Resort down there, and this morning they had a water break that flooded the convention hall.
Oh my God.
But that was after it was over, right?
That's after it's over, you know, it's weird. So anyway, that's all I get.
Commissioner Wright, you got anything for us?
No, just a lot of meetings with the Homeless Coalition. We went out to the city of Milwaukee last night to request a resolution of support and recognition, and that is under consideration with them at this time, but they are very interested in becoming a part of the steering committee and extending our service into the Milwaukee area. So just been spending a lot of time on all that.
Commissioner Mengelberg?
I attended the open house of the Willamette Falls building and toured the facilities. It's beautiful and it's an asset to the community. I'm excited to see that campus continue to grow and they continue to invest in our community. Also, on another note, I love to see all of the water line replacements or sewer line replacements around town and look forward to the roads getting paved over them sometime soon. Mr. Lewis.
Yes.
Which Mr. Lewis?
That one. Phil, John.
You wouldn't be talking about High Street, would you?
Well, there's one right at the bottom of 15th. That's
15th
right by
under
the
the trestle,
Lithia.
yeah.
Oh, yeah,
And
yeah.
then
That's
going
been
out
horrible
to
forever.
Center Street, which is a major detour for traffic. So progress does have cost, and it's going to be exciting when it's done.
That's right.
Commissioner O'Donnell, you got anything for us?
Actually, a simple thing. I attended a community event called Touch a Truck. It involved the police and fire and public works all bringing their vehicles down to the library.
Aren't you a little old for that kind of thing?
Well, you know, I wore a disguise, but I was actually detected by the dogs. So, but I took my grandchildren, and they enjoyed it thoroughly. And I would recommend the community. It was a great interaction between the folks that do those functions and our community. And I'd recommend it to everybody. Next year, be there. You'll enjoy it. That's it.
Okay, so I also attended the D-Pay for Ladderette Park. I'm encouraged that this sort of thing is kind of, it's been an organic thing. It was not something that was actually started by the city. It's the Girl Scouts in the neighborhood who kind of started this off, and it's really snowballed into something that's going to be really cool when it gets done. And so I'm just excited that we have, you know, engaged youth that are willing to put themselves forward and make things like that happen in our community. I've been spending a lot of time working on some development potential for here in Oregon City, and I anticipate sometime in the next couple of weeks that we'll be able to make a major announcement in that vein. Beyond that,
One thing? One more.
there's always one more
I
thing
know.
for Commissioner Ide. Go ahead.
I know.
We're gonna have to make that a thing like on a TV show.
This is
It's
really,
one more
tomorrow
thing.
is a really great day. You all know Winco is opening tomorrow, so it's just a.
Really?
Yeah, it's a really, it's a new store in our community, and we should be grateful for that. And the other thing is, tomorrow evening, we have $350,000 in grants to give out to the community, and we've had 18 applicants. And the total of their requests is more than what we have, so we have some decision-making to do, but they're all valid, great requests, and it just shows a really good interest in our community for people to enhance their community in so many different ways and in different areas of as far as from arts to economic work to beautification projects and so forth. So that's tomorrow evening. So watch for those projects to develop over the next year.
So to add to that, before people start screaming, the city's giving away $350,000. The money
where it's coming
that
from.
we're using is from the tipping fees that we get for hosting the regional garbage transfer station. And in that process, when that was done years and years and years ago, this enhancement fee, and it was established, and there is a set of guidelines that we have to disperse this money to community groups, and there is a process, and there's a big committee, including our Metro Councilor and all of us city commissioners. So, you know, don't throw stones because we're giving out money. That's how the money was always intended to be distributed. So I just wanted to make sure everybody understood that.
I meant to say that.
With that, is there anything else we go to the order? Then we're adjourned.
There's the bug.